When people see the photos I post on Facebook, they often ask, "Where is that? Where is Kingston? Is that really a creek?" So I decided to put together this video showing the areas where people row and paddle in Kingston, New York, and to give people an idea as to how to get on the water there, that is, access points. The reach I refer to is the Rondout Creek, Kingston, New York, USA. First of all, this is where my reach is in New York State, just 2 hours north of New York City, between Poughkeepsie and Albany. What is a reach? In practical use, a reach is just any length of a stream or river. The term is often used by hydrologists when they're referring to a small section of a waterway rather than its entire length. The Hudson River is 315 miles long, and the Rondout Creek is 63 miles long. In the case of my reach, it is the span of the Rondout Creek from Eddyville, New York in the west to where it joins the Hudson River to the northeast, approximately 4 miles, and includes Kingston Point Beach over here. Poughkeepsie is to the right, the south, and Albany is towards the north. Let's take a journey along this reach so you can better understand its charms and eccentricities. It's hard to understand my reach by consulting maps of Kingston because almost all the maps of Kingston that are available either only talk about the Broadway corridor or do not have enough detail to inform you as to how most people use personal watercraft there. This Google map is missing any detail and shows the reach diagonally. So I made this map to better understand the reach and how wide and long it is. I made the coordinates A through Z and 1 to 13, so each location can be easily pinpointed. I adjusted the compass so I could show the reach horizontally instead of diagonally. So sunrise pictures show the sun coming up from here, and on the other extreme, the southwest, is Eddyville. So let's begin with the iconic lighthouse out here. The Rondout Lighthouse is owned by the City of Kingston and operated by the Hudson River Maritime Museum. Guided tours of this historic structure are available seasonally and include a wonderful boat ride from the museum in the Broadway corridor to the lighthouse on the Hudson. This is an aerial view showing the jetty around the lighthouse in low tide. Like the Hudson River, this reach is subject to tides and currents. The confluence of the Rondout Creek and the Hudson at this point can be treacherous because there is a steep drop-off there, and the Hudson is very wide at this point, with barges and tugs, speedboats and cruise ships creating large wakes. It can be a very challenging place for rowers, treacherous for kayakers and canoers, not to mention stand-up paddleboarders. The lighthouse is a picturesque place from sunrise to sunset. Fishing is popular in Kingston in the early part of spring, beginning April 1st and running to early June. Notice the two fishermen here. The Hudson River is a major spawning ground for striped bass. The water is pretty cold for rowing in early spring. Before going out on the water, check that the air plus water temperature combination is 100 degrees Fahrenheit or better. You can find that information on the rondoutrower.com website every morning before 6 a.m. Let me sidetrack here and show you that there is another lighthouse on the Hudson, south of the Rondout Lighthouse, towards Poughkeepsie. In this picture, you can see the Esopus Meadows Lighthouse 4 miles south on the Hudson, but that's another reach. The estuary around the lighthouse is a favorite to many species of birds. This heron sits looking for breakfast in the morning. If you're lucky, you may catch an eagle or two in the trees lining the waterfront and other places. I caught this heron flying south along the Hudson River by the lighthouse. I was walking along the rail trail. Check out kingstongreenline.org for a map if you like nature walks. No matter what time of day you are out there, the lighthouse provides a beautiful picture from any angle. Kingston Point Beach is actually northwest of the lighthouse. Notice the Kingston tanks, and the beach is just west of them. I usually row there from my launch site at Hideaway Marina, which is 2.5 miles away on the Rondout Creek. More on that later. Here you see a 4-person crew boat, a quad actually, making its way north of the lighthouse on the Hudson and passing the tanks. Kingston Point Beach will soon be on the left. They are rowing in the direction of the Rhinecliff Bridge. On an early row, you may see tankers on the Hudson quietly make their way north towards Albany. This one is being pushed by a tug. In the distance, a Coast Guard lighted bell buoy shines a light. Early morning rows are rewarded with beautiful sunrises on the beach. Single scullers can launch or beach their boats and enjoy a walk. Here, a rowing club double returns from a trip to the north towards Albany. Red Coast Guard buoy number 76 on the Hudson marks the right side of the shipping channel. The Kingston Rhinecliff Bridge is in the distance. In this photo, a rower is near red buoy number 76, but facing south towards the beach. The Kingston tanks can be seen to the left, and the historic Hutton Brickyard buildings on the right. This is the Kingston Point parking area. There's plenty of room for those using any type of personal watercraft or motorboats. A motorboat launch is on the left. Restrooms are available, but they are not always open. Around 6 a.m. when I row, they are not open. Slightsburg Park, across and east of the Broadway corridor, is in one of the 11 hamlets of Esopus, as is Port Ewan. This is a view of Slightsburg Park on the Rondout Creek from the south side of the waterfront. Low tide reveals metal debris that hides below the waterline at high tide. The debris is outside of the channel. All vessels need to stay in the middle or on the north side of the creek to avoid running aground or getting caught in debris like this. There's a metal crane which holds an osprey nest at the top, which is pretty busy in early spring. The rail trail part of the Green Line begins across the street from this little church and follows the waterfront to the east towards the lighthouse and hooks around to the left towards Kingston Point Beach later on. The Slightsburg has a walking trail as well. Often, when rowing, you can see deer prancing across the flats here. This is a close-up of the osprey nest from the rail trail side of the creek. A mother can be seen searching the creek for food opportunities. West of the crane is the Slightsburg boat launch. Free parking and porta potty is available for visitors, but the road there is not paved and some do not like leaving their cars there unprotected. You can launch your sculling boat, kayak, canoe, or stand-up paddleboard there. In the early spring, many motorboats launch there to go fishing. This is referred to as the Kingston Waterfront, right here. I call it the Broadway corridor. As I said previously, most maps of Kingston only show the streets and places around Broadway. So this is the Broadway corridor, and this is Broadway, right here. This little road behind this building is West Strand. Under this bridge and across is Rondout Landing. This is the 9W highway, and the bridge crosses the Rondout Creek. There is metered parking on both Broadway and Rondout Landing, and over here besides Gallo Park, where most music and entertainment events, cultural events happened, there is metered parking with an EV station. There's also a limited amount of free parking here, municipal parking, on the other side of Rondout Landing and under the bridge. This is the city marina, which has dockage. Here is Hudson River Cruise Lines, where you can take tours. And there are 3 museums: the Hudson River Maritime Museum, which gives walking tours of the area. There's a trolley museum to the right here, which is across from a very big restaurant, Old Savannah, which sits right on the water. There's another restaurant here, Mariners, and another large restaurant, Savona's, here, as well as many places to eat and shops along Broadway. I think I've covered everything. Right here across the way, you can see a little corner of Island Dock, which we'll talk about shortly. In this picture of the Hudson River Maritime Museum, which I took in 2009, you can see a small wooden dock for rowers and paddlers. That's all there was at the time. And by the way, that's a replica of the Henry Hudson Half Moon, which was visiting at the time. Many a beautiful sunrise can be witnessed here facing east. So in 2015, the Hudson River Maritime Museum, jointly with the Rondout Rowing Club, purchased a Dock Doctors rowing dock, seen here. It is used by the Kingston High School crew and the rowing club, and members of the museum may use it to launch personal watercraft. Membership of the museum is very reasonable. Parking, however, for sculling singles is complicated. Metered parking is limited on both sides of Rondout Landing. Over there, there is a small free parking lot across the street that way, but you have to carry your boats across the landing and across the museum yard, which, depending on the time of day, can be very busy, not to mention during holidays and museum events, it may be impossible. There is, however, a city dock with parking, which I will talk about shortly. The autumn attracts many cruise ships on autumn leafer cruises to enjoy the beautiful change of colors in the foliage along the Hudson River banks. Both of the vessels you see here, the rower and the ship, are on the north side of the creek. The opposite shore is where you may encounter rock outcroppings, or marine debris that could be harmful to your boat. Be vigilant and be on the lookout for hazards on and under the water at all times. Check flags along the waterfront to see if the wind is picking up, which may happen suddenly and affect your trip. Yes, that is a cruise ship up a creek. It may be surprising to see cruise ships in a creek, but the Rondout Creek is no ordinary creek. According to Richardson's nautical guide, the depth at low tide from the entrance by the lighthouse to the Wurts Street Bridge is 14 feet, then 10 feet to the railroad bridge, then 6.5 feet to the west end of Goumere Island, and then 5 feet to Eddyville. Just west of the Broadway corridor is Island Dock. This man-made island was constructed in 1848 by local engineer James McKenty to store the coal shipped by the D&H Canal from Pennsylvania. Coal stored on this island was transferred by steam-operated elevators to river barges for shipment to New York, New England, and beyond. Here we are looking northwest across the Rondout Creek. That is Hideaway Marina, steps away from my home. It has many sailboat and powerboat clients, but also allows the launching of personal watercraft off a concrete boat launch for a fee. Parking and restrooms are available for clients. The south side of the creek is Rondout Yacht Basin, one of the busiest marinas on the creek, with many more facilities. Here we are facing west, and there is Island Dock, which you saw earlier across from Gallo Park, over here. It is under the historic Kingston Port Ewan suspension bridge, built after World War I. To the left is Port Ewan, to the right is Kingston, and the street there is Wurts Street. That's why I refer to it as the Wurts Street Bridge. As I said before, the island was piled high with coal in the day when the D&H Canal operated in the early part of the 19th century. Under the right pillar is the Kingston City Docks, where you may easily launch personal watercraft. I say easily because you can pull right up next to the dock ramp, unload your boat, and then park your car. This is an overhead view of the city dock from the Wurts Street Bridge. That's a 60-foot long crew boat. In this photo, members of the rowing club prepare for a row on the Rondout Creek. This dock was built by the city for rowers and paddlers a pretty long time ago, around 1999, I believe. It is wooden and nearing its last days. Nonetheless, use of the dock is free to the public. You may pay for metered parking Monday through Saturday at the nearby pay station. The Whoosh mobile app can also be used. The nearest restrooms are under the 9W bridge, which is around 800 feet away. Just remember, restrooms are not open early in the morning when most rowers like to row. Leaving the island dock area and proceeding southwest towards Eddyville, you will see the West Shore Railroad Bridge. The channel follows under the large archway on the right. Although you can go under the smaller archway on the left, you may find yourself on a sandbar, as it can be very shallow at low tide. Feeneys shipyard and the Fitch building are visible in the distance behind the center metal column over here. Rowers call this Feeneys Narrows because depending on how many tugboats are queuing up for repairs, the channel can become narrower. It is due west of the railroad bridge. You can find this historic area at the bottom of Wilbur Street. The first thing you find after you pass under the railroad bridge on the right is the historic Fitch Company office, built in 1870 and center of the bluestone industry in Kingston. Back in the day, this area was full of cargo boats that would transport bluestone to destinations all over the U.S. Ever heard of Abercrombie and Fitch? Yeah, that Fitch. Feeneys Yard has two 1,500-ton dry docks and several massive cranes that service very large vessels and barges. The Feeney shipyard dates to the 1860s, when Owen Feeney emigrated from Ireland to America and became a stonemason on the D&H Canal. Owen's son Thomas founded Feeney's shipyard in 1904, 116 years ago. Although it can be risky navigating this stretch, Feeney's staff are well aware of small craft moving about and will shout warning whenever they are about to enter or exit the creek. To get an idea as to creek traffic, let's take a quick ride on a Feeney's tugboat pushing a work barge down the creek toward a job site. It will go towards the Broadway corridor, passing by the railroad bridge, Island Dock, the Wurts Street Bridge, and the 9W Bridge before reaching its destination across from the Slightsburg near North Street. Then the tugboat will turn around and return to Feeney's without the barge. In time-lapse mode, it will take a little over a minute. So here we go. Down the creek, under the railroad bridge. This is the Rondout Yacht Basin. On the left is Island Dock. Here we go under Wurts Street Bridge, under the 9W Bridge, and he prepares. You see the Slightsburg across the way, and there's the crane at the right-hand side of the creek. So he's getting those pipes set up. Now he's unhitching, and back he goes to the Feeney shipyard worksite. Notice how he stays on the kind of to the right hand side in the middle, which is the channel. Boom. Historic Eddyville, destination of many wonderful 5.5-mile rows at the bottom of my reach. The area includes tiny Goumere Island on the right and lots more. Here is a historic view of the area facing southwest. The steamboat stays in the channel to the right. Goumere Island is on the left. It is probably low tide because the mudflats are very prominent. This view shows Goumere Island and the beautiful Eddyville Bridge. Further down are the Eddyville Falls. You can see Feeney's up here. It is very shallow in this part of the creek. That is why there are Coast Guard buoys to direct marine traffic through the channel to avoid the mudflats around Goumere. Rowing back and forth to the Eddyville Falls, I have seen osprey and eagles feeding on the mudflats at low tide around here. Also, I've seen swans. For whatever reason, this is a popular place for swans to live. This rower pauses a moment to admire the beautiful Eddyville Bridge before continuing west to the falls. The bridge was built originally in 1911, but replaced in 1957. Often people drop fishing lines over the side, so make sure you have a look before you continue under it. The Eddyville Falls can be seen in the distance over here. Below the bridge are two concrete pods which mark the place of the original 1911 bridge. When I row this far away, 2.5 miles from the Broadway corridor, I stop at one of two tiny beaches on either side. It's good to get up out of my boat and take a break to enjoy the sound of the falls in the distance on an early morning row. This is the south side mini beach on the left. I have seen eagles feeding on the beach several times here. This is the north side mini beach, closer to the falls, with another view of the beautiful bridge. There I took a walk to get closer to the falls. The rocks are very slippery, so this is not a great idea. On this row, we get up as close as possible to the falls. It is extremely shallow and rocky here, at a depth of just a few feet. It is high tide, though, and is probably safe. It's an early and cloudy day. I'm on the Kingston City docks under the Wurts Street Bridge, ready to launch my TS 515 for a morning row. I hope this has been helpful, and if so, please give me a thumbs up, shoot me an email, or leave me some comments. I would love to hear from you. Hope to see you on the water. Be safe.